Thanksgiving break is just days away. Holiday season festivities are kicking into gear here in the capital region, but the shadow of the pandemic still looms. Albany County's COVID-19 cases are at their highest since January. Coming up on this episode of The Eagle, we'll go over the top headlines.
That means that undocumented workers who legitimately should have access to those benefits are being victimized as a result of this scheme.
Critical race theory has become a contentious topic at local school board meetings lately. We'll dig into why.
Anything to do with equity and inclusion and trying to address bias and racism is seen as sort of, a euphemism for critical race theory.
We'll hear from newly crowned World Series champion Ian Anderson. He is home in the capital region for the off-season.
It was a heck of a season, and to come out on top was special.
And we'll talk to American Idol finalist Madison VanDenburg. She's back home here too, and she's debuting a brand new Christmas single.
And I hope that people can take away from this song a feeling of hope and a feeling of kind of gratefulness for what we have.
This is The Eagle, a Times Union podcast, a look inside our newsroom. I'm Jessica Marshall.
If you're enjoying this podcast, take advantage of all the Times Union has to offer and support our efforts to bring in you award-winning journalism by becoming a Times Union member today. Go to timesunion.com/subscribe.
Welcome to The Eagle. I'm Jessica Marshall. First up, let's go over what appeared this week in the Times Union and on timesunion.com. All right, we are here once again, as we are every week, with Times Union Editor-in-Chief Casey Seiler. Let's go over to the top headlines this week. We'll start with former Governor Andrew Cuomo and his book deal, the approval for which was rescinded by the state ethics panel this week, which is kind of a big deal. So can you tell us why?
Yeah, at their regular meeting on Tuesday and in public session, the commissioners voted 12-1 to rescind the approval that was granted to the governor for his book deal with Crown Publishers for his COVID memoir, which was a $5.1 million deal. The resolution that was approved noted that the governor's council, in pitching this package to JCOPE back in the summer of 2020, made what appeared to be assurances that were not followed. Chief among them, the promise that no state resources or state personnel would be used to facilitate the production of this book. That, as has been alleged and has been confirmed by the Times Union, was not the case. That, in fact, executive chamber personnel worked on the book, edited the book, handled kind of clerical tasks connected to it. Now, the governor and his defenders have said, well, all of those people were volunteering, but that's an assertion that has been called into question as well. We anticipate that we will find out more about the production of the governor's COVID memoir in the release of the Assembly's Judiciary Committee report, which we have heard is imminent. So imminent that we're talking on Thursday that there could be, news on that within the next 24 to 48 hours, but we'll just have to see. Now, the former governor can reapply for JCOPE's approval. If, however, that is denied, JCOPE could conceivably then move ahead to compel the governor to give back some of the money, at least some of the money that he received from Crown. Now, the book, though it did fine when it was initially released, I believe it was in October of 2020, as the scandals around the governor began to proliferate, Crown was forced to stop publicizing the book. I believe they also stopped printing it, and it ended up being, much like the governor's first memoir, All Things Possible, a major commercial disappointment.
Sticking with state news here, the New York Inspector General is now investigating allegations of widespread cheating on the online driver's permit test. What's going on there?
Yeah, Brendan Lyons, our capital and investigations chief, dug into this. Allegations now being investigated by the state inspector general's office that a program that allowed people to take driver's permit tests from home, to take them virtually, might have facilitated cheating on those tests. And the way that at least some of that was sniffed out was when people would come in to pick up their documents after taking this test and, passing it with flying colors in under 10 minutes, they were then told, hey, there's a problem. Would you mind taking a retest of just, 20 as opposed to 100 questions? Go into this room and take the test. And people would either walk away or they would go in and struggle for an hour to answer 1/5 of the questions that they answered in lightning time, and then had a very, very high failure rate. Now, one possibility is that people, including folks maybe from out of state, are using this cheating method, this alleged cheating method, to secure documents that could then allow them to tap into the excluded workers fund. Now, that's a big pot of money that the legislature set up to make certain unemployment benefits available to, for example, undocumented workers and other workers who sort of fell below the horizon line for a lot of these benefits. And that means that undocumented workers who legitimately should have access to those benefits are being victimized as a result of this scheme. So more to come there for sure.
Yes, definitely. You can check out the Capital Confidential section of timesunion.com. All right, let's talk about 787, which for folks who don't know or who are out of town, it's a commuter artery that runs the length of Albany along the Hudson River. It's been a long-standing feature of the Albany skyline, one might say, and there are plans maybe in the works to tear it down. What's the scoop there?
An organization that has been kind of coalescing called the Albany Riverfront Collaborative is trying to build up momentum for really monumental changes in the downtown that would, they hope, reconnect the city of Albany to its downtown, which right now is chopped up primarily by 787. That is a massive classic Robert Moses style, ribbon of highway that cuts downtown off from the Corning Preserve and, what used to be a very vibrant working waterfront. And also by the arterial that connects 787 to the Empire State Plaza. That really chops kind of downtown Albany from South Albany. I think only someone driving a car would think that that's a good thing. Now, of course, there are a lot of people who drive their cars to get to the center of New York State government. But the collaborative has really kind of stepped up its game in terms of presenting visual plans on what the kind of scrapping or the kind of boulevardization of 787 would look like. That is knocking it down to, fewer lanes, to taking it down to grade, as they say, and using some of the saved space, a lot of the saved space, for trees, for parks, for, other forms of pedestrian accommodation as well. Now, the total cost of what these plans might run is still somewhat elusive. What they say is that obviously the construction would have a huge public benefit, but there are now lawmakers, including Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey, who have been longtime advocates of, at the very least, looking at the possibilities for what this kind of change would make. But the coolest thing that the collaborative has done, just from a purely visual perspective, is they've produced sliders. In other words, little digital sliders that you can take across an image of what Albany's waterfront looks like now, and you can digitally sweep across it and see what it might look like if that ribbon of highway was replaced by parkland in Holler Park.
Yes, that is super cool. Check that out. Go to timesunion.com. All right, one last thing, and this personally makes me very, very giddy with excitement. Freihofer's cookies, chocolate chip cookies, are back. They were threatened a bit by, I believe, supply chain issues. There was no more on the shelves. Now they're coming back. So tell us about that.
Yes, Bimbo Bakeries USA, which I think we can agree is one of the greatest names for a bakery in our nation's history, just announced that the supply chain issues that had been prompted in large part by Hurricane Ida that had damaged the facilities for the suppliers of these popular, very familiar, classic third grade teacher Friday snacks, I think you would probably say, have wound down, and that they will be reappearing in mid-November back on store shelves. So for those who love these cookies, and for those perhaps who didn't realize how much they love these cookies until they went away, this is certainly good news, and something else that we can all be thankful for when we're around the holiday table next week.
For sure. I think I'm going to spend my lunch break sneaking down to Price Chopper to grab some. All right, Casey, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you next week.
My pleasure.
As always, you can read more about all of the stories and the issues that we discuss on this podcast at timesunion.com. Okay, now let's talk about critical race theory. It's become a contentious topic lately, particularly at local school board meetings.
I am certainly not proud of what our children are being taught. CRT, teaching children to focus on race on purpose, because that's not the very definition of racism.
At no point in history have the people forcing others into compliance been the good guys. Our freedoms do not end where your feelings begin.
LGBTQ movement, open borders, gender equality, breaking down the family structure, critical race theory, gender pronouns, causing confusion, division, and chaos among youth.
Those are people speaking at recent South Colony, Guilderland, and Shenendehowa School District board meetings. So what exactly is critical race theory, and why is it so contentious? And are the principles of it actually being taught in New York schools? Times Union education reporter Rachel Silberstein recently took a deep dive into these questions, and I spoke with her to find out what she learned. I think we have to start by actually defining critical race theory. Can we just sort of start with the standard definition by academics of critical race theory?
Sure. Critical race theory is essentially a legal theory that was developed in the 1980s. It's one of several ways that scholars try to explain why racial inequality is so pervasive in our society. And essentially it says that race is a social construct, and it's not just based on people's personal biases and prejudices. It's embedded in our institutions. And over the years, it's sort of been applied. It's become this expansive, sprawling theory that's been applied in many fields, including education. Lately, the term has sort of become a flashpoint. In the last year or two, it's become a flashpoint at school board meetings and sort of on the political level nationally.
So what's the issue at school board meetings? Why has it been so contentious?
Pretty much any school board meeting, and particularly predominantly white, suburban, and rural school meetings, I think it's sort of a reaction to, this time it's a reaction to what's happening at the state level. The state education department is working on this equity and inclusion program, which is sort of building on previous equity inclusion efforts. But because it's really become a rallying call, critical race theory, and people don't necessarily know what critical race theory is, but they know of the term. It's anything to do with equity and inclusion and trying to address bias and racism is seen as sort of, a euphemism for critical race theory. Because this conversation has become so fraught, school leaders and educators are sort of reflexively going, oh, this has nothing to do with us. We don't teach that here. But the reality is it's kind of more complicated. It really informs some of the equity and inclusion and anti-bias efforts that are happening on the school level. It's just hard to explain this sprawling academic theory that's evolved over 40 years in a nutshell. So in this story, I sort of sought to explain how it became such a loaded issue and the relationship between critical race theory and equity and inclusion initiatives.
So you spoke recently to New York State Board of Regents Chancellor Lester Young about this issue. What did he have to say about it?
Nothing that we have advanced in New York State is related to critical race theory.
So Chancellor Lester Young, I spoke to him at length about sort of this uproar over critical race theory. And his point was really that, educational institutions have an obligation to address the needs of a changing student population. Our classrooms are becoming more and more multicultural, And, it's just a recognition that the structures currently in place are preventing all children from succeeding. There's just a ton of data out there that we've been looking at for years. No matter what we've tried, we have barely moved the needle when it comes to racial disparities. There's just inequities at every level of our education system, from our gifted programs to AP classes to discipline to who's admitted to top colleges.
He very specifically said critical race theory is not taught in school. So why would he say that?
That's sort of a reflexive, he realized it's sort of a lightning rod, and he's trying to tone down the decibel level a little bit. CRT, as they call it, has become sort of a stand-in for vaccine mandates and masking and whatever else is sort of being egged on by, political pundits and other sort of reactionary forces. But I think on a local level, parents do have legitimate concerns.
What are they actually saying at these school board meetings? Like, what are they using as justification to, criticize
what they're saying, what they mean? I don't know if they're necessarily aligned. Like, it's not clear that they know exactly what critical race theory is. They just know that it's sort of it represents something to them. And I think to them, they see equity and inclusion and adapting curriculums to be more culturally adaptive and represent non-white cultures and different points of view. To them, they see you're adjusting school. They see school as sort of this highly competitive zero-sum game that when you change it and you change the system to accommodate someone else's children, it must be at the expense of your children. And it's kind of true. If more kids of color are being identified as gifted and admitted to Ivy League schools, then there will inevitably be more competition and fewer seats available for white kids. But I think Chancellor Young is saying, the data has shown that historically it was already rigged in favor of white kids. And we need to balance the scales and make sure that the system is working for everybody.
We have an obligation to create systems for all children. And that's really what this is about.
You also spoke to academics.
Yeah, and that was it was helpful because I think, like you said, the chancellor was like, oh, this has nothing to do with this. We're not teaching critical race theory in school. And while that's technically true, critical race theory, I think academics will say it informs, a lot of the ideas of critical race theory that have developed over 40 years have sort of filtered down into our lexicon and the way we look at race and racism and how institutional racism. These are pretty mainstream terms. And so it's not that critical race theory has nothing to do with the schools. It's not really something you teach or something you do. It's just sort of a concept that informs people's work when they're trying to create more equity in the classroom.
In writing this article, are there any new things that you learned about critical race theory or about how it has been kind of applied or used as a political football? I mean, what did you learn from this article, and what are you kind of going to look at going forward?
So it seems like, 2 years ago, sort of like people started talking more about critical race theory with the publication of Nicole Hannah-Jones's 1619 Project, which was sort of an effort to tell the story of America's founding from the perspective of the African slaves that came to the colonies. And it's been really controversial. It's sort of this kind of got bogged down by this academic infighting and debate over who gets to define, America's history. And I learned that it's actually a pretty old debate here in New York. We've been debating how to teach social studies and history for decades. And, previous efforts to sort of change our curriculum to consider the contributions of Native Americans and African Americans and various minority groups have just been really similarly sort of bogged down by politics and academics who are just, nitpicky about the details and are, feel that, are focused on what they say is accuracy. And so that's it's just a long-standing debate that really precedes all of this stuff.
After the break, Major League Baseball pitcher Ian Anderson just won the World Series with the Atlanta Braves. And American Idol finalist Madison VanDenburg has released a new Christmas single. They're Capital Region residents, and we'll talk to them both coming up. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Casey Seiler, editor of the Times-Union. Join us for an ongoing discussion on major developments in the saga of Keith Raniere, co-founder of NXIVM, the shadowy upstate New York organization at the center of the explosive federal investigation that resulted in Raniere's conviction on charges of extortion, sex trafficking, and more. We talk to former members of NXIVM, discuss the latest news, and preview the likely next twists in this bizarre and disturbing story. You can find NXIVM on trial at timesunion.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Eagle, a Times Union podcast. I'm Jessica Marshall. The Atlanta Braves defeated the Houston Astros 4-2 in the World Series earlier this month. Rookie Braves pitcher Ian Anderson threw 5 no-hit innings in Game 3, earning a critical win there for Atlanta. Anderson grew up in Rexford and played varsity baseball for Shenandoah. He returned to his hometown this month after the win, where he spoke with Times Union sports reporter James Allen. Here's a bit of their conversation.
Has it all sunk in yet?
Now that we've had a little bit of time to reflect, and we were able to enjoy it with the fans, I think it's starting to sink in a little bit. It's funny, still checking social media and stuff, seeing our guys, going on the world tour. It's pretty funny. So I think that they deserve it. It was a heck of a season, and to come out on top was special.
It looked like the parade was pretty crazy. What was your experience like?
Yeah, it was crazy. It might be like the first 2-part parade I think I've ever seen or heard of.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
So, to go through Downtime.
Were you on the bus flying through the?
Well, we went underneath when we were coming down. We were coming down the highway, but there were people throwing beers up at us, and the fans were, 20 to 30 rows deep, and then we got up to the battery around the stadium, and that was like nothing I'd ever seen. So
I asked your dad about this. One of the things that I thought stood out to me when you were a high school pitcher, even when you were a sophomore, that you always had the slow heartbeat when the big moments. Can you even put that into words, what that's like? Because you've handled so many big game situations as a young player better than just about anybody that's ever done it before. Can you even put that into context? Why have you been so successful that way?
When you talk about it, I think that's the difference. I think there's guys with more talent than me, without a doubt, and just the ability to kind of slow things down can save you so much. That's where you have to kind of look at it as, how can I gain advantages from other things maybe that I'm not gifted with? And that's one thing I would try to, teach younger kids. There's a lot of other things out there you can get some advantages from. And some of my teammates were joking that I was a 65-year-old. So I just get a kick out of it. I mean, it's something that helps me out there without a doubt, and I try to use it.
I remember when the Scots were following you around your senior year, and everybody was marveling at the 97 and the curveball. But you talked to me even then that I have to have another pitch. And how much development of that changeup? How much do you think that's helped your career, and how much you feel like you still have to add to it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it put my career on a different path. Definitely. It's definitely become my go-to pitch, and just happened by repetition, working on it, messing with some grips, throwing with my brother, and then him giving me feedback. And there's a lot more to go. Definitely. It's always pitching is fun because you get to refine it and you get to try to master different things, and that's what I enjoy about it.
Even though this was technically your rookie year, how much do you feel like the experience of being called up last year and having the playoff experience helped you?
Yeah, it helped a ton. Having that experience of potentially pitching a Game 7 than actually pitching it, it definitely helped kind of change my mindset going into this time. And this one was on a little bit of a bigger stage. So, just the whole thing of kind of getting into your routine, figuring it out, playing the same team we played last year, added a little more incentive. So definitely helped.
How much downtime will there be for you before you start gearing it up again?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that yet. Probably a couple weeks at least, I would say.
When you talk with Kevin and he's at your playoff games, and obviously he's in the middle of his season now, I mean, can you think of, it's less than 5 years. I mean, it's 5 years ago. We were at Binghamton watching you guys win state championship. To think where you are now, is it still hard for you, both of you, to believe that?
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. 5 years, it's felt like a long time. It really has, but when you look back on it, it really hasn't been all that long. So I think we've both changed quite a bit in the last 5 years for the better, and to see what he's been able to do is it's special. Had a great game last night, and you hope someone that that personally can go through the experience of winning a championship as well.
What's next? What do you try to add? Do you try to add another pitch? What's the next challenge for you?
I would say add another ring. Why not? Let's keep going.
I like that.
American Idol Season 17 finalist Madison VanDenburg is also home for the holidays. The Cohoes native isn't just here for a break, though. She's also here to release her new holiday single, The Light of Christmas. Times Union entertainment reporter Shrishti Mathew caught up with Madison and Nashville songwriter Kenny Lamb to talk about the song and how it came together.
In the light of Christmas, I have seen what love can do.
Madison, where are you right now? Are you in the capital region?
I am, yes. I'm in my hometown. I'm in Cohoes, New York.
And how does that feel to be here in time for the holiday season?
It's so exciting because we have lots of things coming up, and especially something really exciting for the first debut of a song, which we'll talk about soon. But it's just really great to be home around the holiday season and getting prepared and ready for what's to come in the upcoming year. And Christmas time is always my favorite. So very, very happy to be home.
Kenny, what exactly was the inspiration behind The Light of Christmas?
That was a song that when it was written, we knew we needed an artist that could not only handle the range of the song. Sometimes when you write a song as a songwriter, it goes to a place that is going to require some vocal ability and range that starts to limit the artist that might want to sing it or be able to sing it well. And then there's sometimes there's a lyrical component that you feel like it's going to take the right approach emotionally to be able to sell the song and really get it across. And so my co-writer Anthony Little and I had the song written for a while, and it just hadn't found the right place yet. And songs kind of find their way. And when we realized that as I started working with Madison and realized that we might have found the right voice and the right person, it became clear that this pairing with that song and Madison could be something special.
Madison, what was it like? Like, how did you go about connecting with this song? Did it strike you as something that you wanted to sing as soon as you read it?
Yeah, so when they sent over the demo to me to take a listen to the first time, even just the first listen through, I was so blown away by the power of the song and how much it already felt like a timeless classic Christmas song that I've heard before. It sounded like it was just so timeless, and it was all around so beautiful. And the lyrics themselves are, I connected with them a lot. There's a lot of beautiful lyrics in there about the joys of Christmas and coming together, and how the world really does change when Christmas time comes around and things just are happier and they're lighter. And so when I heard it, I just knew. I was like, oh heck yeah, like let's do this. Like it was a perfect fit. It was it wasn't something we were looking for. It was kind of like, hey, take a listen to this song. Let me know what you think. And it just ended up being like the perfect pairing. And that's why I'm so excited to be, singing this song. It's just great.
When the Spirit brings you to that place, the world takes on a different face, and hearts are filled with all we have to give.
You said that you loved Christmas time. So did this song connect to that emotion in any way, and how?
Being surrounded by your loved ones and the people you care about is something that is really important to me, and which is awesome about Christmas time. And so there's a couple lyrics in this song that are just kind of connected with me, and that feeling of being together, like togetherness with your family and with those that you love. So yeah, it really kind of made me think of I don't know, family traditions growing up and being with my family and doing the tree and things like that. It kind of just brought all those feelings through listening to the song. And yeah, those were some of the parts that I really connected to.
What was your recording and producing process like for both of you?
So I ended up flying down to Nashville with my team at the beginning of September. And this was the first time Kenny and my team and I myself have met in person. It was great. I mean, we hit it off right at the start. We all just worked so well together. And we got in the studio. We recorded at this incredible studio called Blackbird. And so many incredible legendary artists have recorded there, like Bruce Springsteen, Kelly Clarkson, Taylor Swift, John Mayer, like lots of good juju in those rooms. And so I got in the booth and we kind of ran through the songs and the process and got going. And early on in the session, I just knew it was going to be awesome because Kenny is just so encouraging while I was in the booth. And we also worked with Christopher Rowe, who was the recording engineer. And he as well was just so talented and down to earth and like really encouraging to make the song the best, to make sure the experience overall was awesome. And we just got in there and we recorded this song along with a couple others, and it was awesome.
Now, Madison, you grew up here in the capital region. So what was that like? What was it like pre-American Idol?
I used to, before, pre-American Idol, I was always in a bar or a restaurant or some type of music venue trying to just get my name out there and play for people.
Do you have any regulars? Any places where you performed?
Oh yeah, I used to play all the time at this place called Phillies Bar and Grill in Latham, TJ's Flightline Pub, like a couple different places that were, the small. Some of them were little hole in the wall places, but it was such an incredible vibe, and I think that's what was really awesome growing up in the capital region doing music. Was even though I was just playing for a room of strangers and we were all there just to have a good time and share the night of music and drinks and whatever, people were so encouraging and so kind and supportive, and people just wanted to have a good time, and they really just loved being in a room with music, and I loved performing for them. So definitely the capital region has always been so good to me and so kind, and yeah, I will always be forever grateful for that.
So now you're going to be having your launch and your unveiling at the Christmas tree lighting in Schenectady.
Yes.
Yes. So why did you come to choose Schenectady?
Well, the Schenectady Holiday Parade has been a family tradition of mine, actually. For years when I was younger, we used to go, and it was always an amazing time. And when we thought about unveiling the Light of Christmas, we thought it was an amazing idea to kind of unveil it for the first time live to the capital region, because they were always my number one. They always had my back, and the Schenectady Holiday Parade is just a beautiful parade and lots of fun, and so many people turn out, and it's always a great time. So we wanted to unveil it there and kind of give the capital region a taste of it before the rest of the world, and that was something that was really exciting to me, and was really important to me, was trying to give back in any type of way I can for all the support that I've received over the years. And that's why we ended up deciding to unveil the song at the parade.
Madison, finally, what do you hope people will take away from this song?
Personally, for me, and a part of the song even says it itself, is if we could see every day in the brightness of the season, so much would change. I think a lot of this song kind of brings out a lot, like Henny said, this feeling of togetherness, and that, we're all kind of connected, and we can get through anything, especially through COVID. A lot of people are still struggling, and the whole world has been struggling for, the past year and a half. And I hope that people can take away from this song a feeling of hope and a feeling of kind of gratefulness for what we have, and the time that we have surrounded by our loved ones and our family is so important. And definitely through the struggles of this past year and a half, it's definitely made me realize how appreciative I am to have a loving family and loving people around me. And that's not something I want to take for granted ever. And this song kind of really reminds me of, if we could see that and have that feeling every day, so much about the world would change. So much would be would be a brighter place. A lot more things would change, and I hope people just get that good sense of family and togetherness, and of hope that better things are coming. And the Christmas time is always a good time to kind of remember those things. So yeah.
It's the love that shines within us as we share this holy night.
All right, that's it for this week. I'm Jessica Marshall. We'll be back next week with another look inside the newsroom here at the Times-Union. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, or head over to timesunion.com for the latest news and features. The Eagle is a production of the Times-Union. It's produced and edited by me, Jessica Marshall, with help from the Times-Union digital team and the newsroom. Special thanks this week to Casey Seiler, Rachel Silberstein, James Allen, and Shrishti Mathew for their contribution to this episode.